What is the strangest thing that happened to you that you can't logically explain? As a child visiting my grandma's house, my mom's mom, whenever I left the house I'd wave next door to Ken, who was always sat in the bay window looking out at the sea. They lived right on the coast off the North Sea in Hartlepool, UK. We'd never really talk, but just a little wave before I went to get into the car. One time I'm leaving my gran's house, I'm in front of my mum who stopped at the door to talk to my gran. So I head down the steps and towards the gate. I turn back and see Ken in the window. Big smile as usual, waving at me. I give him a wave back. He stands up, gives me the thumbs up, and wanders towards the back of the room. My mum comes walking down the steps and asks, "Who are you waving at?" I replied, "Ken." To this day, I can remember my mam's face. She just went white, but didn't say anything to me. It was only a few weeks later when she plucked up the courage to tell me that Ken had died a few days prior to our visit to my gran's. I don't believe in ghosts, but I know I saw him. I can still picture his striped gray sweater with light stripes across it. Him waving and getting up out of his chair. There was no one else in the house, he lived by himself. Brains are weird. I 100% believe you. My cousin's daughter, 4 years old maybe, says she talks to our dead grandpa all the time. One time my cousin caught her singing along to my grandpa's favorite song, giggling and running around the room. She asked her what she was doing and she said, "I'm playing with Tata and he's teaching me a song." She got so spooked because there's no way her daughter could have heard it anywhere, as my cousin doesn't like to listen to it because the song reminds her of him and it makes her sad. It's also an old tango that you have to actively search on the internet to find. There are other things about her kid that are straight up weird and everyone is convinced she's a medium or something. I once was changing pants in my room before work and took off my belt. After putting on my other pair of pants, I went to put my belt back on, but belt was gone. No one else was in the room and I spent a good 10 minutes looking for it, as I had simply set it on the floor. It's been 10 years and I've never seen that belt again. Meanwhile, a guy across the world finds a belt in his bedroom all of a sudden. I'm a firefighter and we got a call for an overdose around 3 a.m. to a rough part of our district in the middle of winter. Unfortunately, the patient was long gone, and her dealer or whatever found her like that when he dropped some stuff. As we were packing up our stuff, mind you this is a absolutely trashed mobile home, I hear something down the hall that said lights. I asked my partner if he said anything, as it was just him and I cleaning up. He said no. I walked to the far end of the trailer where I heard it and shine my flashlight. I get a reflection out of the window. They have a small tool shed and it had a flickering light. It piqued my interest, so my partner and I go out there. We hear crying and notice the door is padlocked. We cut it, and this little 6-year-old girl was in there. She said her mom puts her in there when she gets mad at her. She said she got scared when she heard the sirens and didn't know what to do. To this day I have no idea what happened or where the voice came from, but I'll take the win on it. Edit. A couple people wondering about what happened after. My partner and I took her to the children's hospital closest to us and we wrote our report and ate chips and a sandwich we took from the lounge while they called a social worker. She was a really sweet girl. The voice was not a little girl voice. I 100% thought it was my partner since it sounded like a guy. How horrible for that poor girl. I hope she's in a better family situation now. I once shut my ear in a car door. No idea how, have tried to recreate it and can't, but my god that hurt. You deserve something for this. This one is strange to me because it was so long ago and I'm convinced I have to be remembering things wrong. I was a young kid at the grocery store and I saw this toy helicopter, like Hot Wheel sized, that I really wanted for some reason. I, of course, didn't buy it, but the memory of it stuck in my head. A few nights later, I had a dream where I was playing with the helicopter, but I realized it was a dream and stupid young me thought that if I put it under my pillow, it would still be there when I woke up. After that, I woke up and eagerly checked under the pillow to get it. For some reason, it was right where I left it in the dream. As a kid, I wasn't surprised to find it there as it all made perfect sense to me then, but years later I have no clue how the toy helicopter actually got underneath the pillow. Did you ask your parents if they bought it and put it under your pillow as a surprise? I hit a patch of black ice in the dark going 60 miles per hour down the highway. At the time, I drove a 1-ton cargo van. It hit the guardrail and flipped. Not only did I walk away without a scratch, the car was drivable and I was only 30 minutes late to work. Do a barrel roll. When I was about 12 years old I went up to Lake Tahoe with my friend and his parents who had a condo in Incline Village. One day, the two of us are walking to the bowling alley and cross a street in a crosswalk. Right before we get to the curb, a car comes really close to hitting us. All of a sudden, we're both up on the curb, like we were lifted a few feet. We both looked at each other strangely. Did you jump? No, did you? No. We spent the next hour kind of dumbfounded. It didn't feel like a shove or any use of force. We were still in the street, then we weren't. When I was younger, in elementary school, I used to have the same dream every weekend starting on Saturday, when I would go to sleep, and then waking up in the middle of the night, on Sunday, and throwing up. The dream was always a bunch of numbers. Not even anything happening, just a bunch of random jumbled up numbers all over the place. I never understood why that happened, where the same dream would happen on the same night every week and I would throw up every single time. I always think about it and wonder what it was, or if it was just some weird coincidence. Also, I would not have any signs of being sick before or after. Maybe someone else has experienced this? The only thing I can think of is cyclical vomiting syndrome, and it triggering that dream. For context, I used to have cyclical vomiting syndrome when I was younger, and it always happened at 6:30. I would wake up feeling extremely and I could hear my heart in my head. I would then go to the fridge and drink the same juice and go to the bathroom, vomit, fall asleep, wake up, vomit, and then I was all fine. Okay, that sounds a lot like what I was probably experiencing. Except I went straight to the toilet. Haha, the dream thing has never happened since though. I have a vivid memory of being at the Statue of Liberty as a child, on my dad's shoulders, seeing the skyline of NYC. I remember what we ate for lunch that day, etc. I remember the ferry we took. I've always thought about this memory and talked about it, but my family denies I ever went to NYC. I didn't go for the first time until I was 23, but strangely enough, when I went, I remembered everything just how it had been when I was there with my dad. Same, had a Thanksgiving where my whole extended family came to visit from Minnesota and Wisconsin, live in Michigan, but my whole family denies it ever happening. My uncle even taught me how to throw a punch with my thumb on the outside of my fingers so I don't break them. On Reddit one night, I read that thread where the op hallucinated weird stuff until a commenter suggested that he check for a carbon monoxide leak. The commenter probably saved his life. I went to bed thinking, oh yeah, I never did check whether my new house's smoke alarms also detect carbon monoxide. I need to check that out in the morning. At maybe 6 a.m., my wife and I awoke to our fire alarms screeching, with a recorded voice telling us carbon monoxide was detected. We grabbed the baby and the dog, piled into our car in the driveway, and called the fire department to check it out. After they tested, they told us no carbon monoxide was detected, but sometimes fire alarms behave unexpectedly when their batteries are low. This was maybe 5 years after moving into a house that's new construction, so yes, I was super delinquent in checking it. It wasn't even the first time I'd read that story on Reddit. Anyway, there is absolutely a logical explanation, an improbable but possible coincidence. But that's how I ended up spending huge piles of money on a bunch of Nest Protect units, so I could at least get a pleasant phone notification when my alarm's batteries are low. When I was 10 years old, I didn't want to go to school one day. I faked a stomach ache so my grandmother would let me stay home. I've always been a bad liar, so my grandma tried to call my bluff. She told me if I was too sick for school then she would be scheduling me a doctor's appointment. 3 hours later I was rushed into emergency surgery. My fake illness was actually appendicitis, and it was so inflamed that if I hadn't come in that day my appendix would have ruptured, potentially killing me. I felt 100% fine that day. Faking sick saved my life.